We've previously covered several creative minds who were from other countries. However, there were some innovative homegrown composers in the more serious concert music of the 20th century. I call it classical, and I use classical here as an adjective describing music that doesn't fall solidly and completely into jazz, rock, or theater, but is meant for concert hall performance. We'll cover a few. Charles Ives, Aaron Copland, William Grant Still, and George Gershwin. Ives was a startling experimentalist who decided that it was wise not to make his living as that it was wise not to make his living as a composer because his family would have starved, so he made his living as an insurance salesman. He was influenced by ragtime, marching bands, barn dances, and church choirs, but mostly those moments where the sounds clashed, when the organist held a chord too long so that the rest of the choir was singing something else, and the orchestra was playing, and the organ was playing the wrong key. He liked it when two marching bands that played in different keys got within earshot of each other. In Putnam's Camp from Three Places in New England, he creates the multitonal confusion and gaiety of a picnic. Aaron Copland started his career writing serious, highly dissonant, percussive works, and then decided to start writing works that were more accessible to a larger audience. His ballets, Billy the Kid, Rodeo, and Appalachian Spring, have elements of jazz, revival hymns, cowboy songs, and folk tunes. It's easy to feel the openness of the American landscape in his work. Listen to this segment from the ballet Appalachian Spring that is built on the folk tune, The Gift to Be Simple. It is constructed as a theme in variations, which you studied in the classical era. William Grant Still was born in Mississippi and grew up in Arkansas. He studied music in college, but left before graduating to become a pop music arranger and performer. Then he enrolled in Oberlin Conservatory for more formal training. He doubled as a pop musician and a concert music composer. In 1931, he premiered his Afro-American Symphony with the Rochester Philharmonic, the first black composer to be performed by a major American symphony orchestra. Eventually, his work was performed by 36 orchestras in the U.S. and Europe. He was also the first to have an opera performed by a major opera company, Troubled Island, about the Haitian slave rebellion. We're going to listen to the third movement of this Afro-American Symphony, which he subtitles Humor. Still said that he wanted to demonstrate that the blues, so often considered a lowly expression, could be elevated to the highest musical level. He uses a banjo in the orchestra to create an ethnic sound and uses themes that sound like spirituals and jazz tunes. One of the most influential composers of the early 20th century was George Gershwin. He was born in Brooklyn in 1896 to Russian immigrants, the second of 4 children. He later partnered with his older brother Ira, who worked with him as his lyricist to create musicals and operas that are still performed today. He started playing piano when he was 10, and by 15 he quit school and found his first job as a performer as a song plugger for Jerome H. Remick and Company, a publishing firm on New York City's Tin Pan Alley, where he earned a whole $15 a week. His first publishing song was When You Want 'Em, You Can't Get 'Em, When You've Got 'Em, You Don't Want 'Em. It was published in 1916 when Gershwin was only 17 years old and earned him a whole $5, even though he was promised much more. In 1919, he scored his first big national hit with his song, Swanee. While I'm not going to dwell on musical theater in this lecture on concert music, Gershwin is famous for many songs that have become Broadway classics, including Someone to Watch Over Me, I Got Rhythm, Nice Work If You Can Get It, and Fascinating Rhythm. What really showed his strength as a composer, though, was his most ambitious composition, the opera Porgy and Bess, written in 1935. Even though it was a commercial failure when it was written, it is now widely regarded as the most important American opera of the 20th century. In fact, the 2011 revival on Broadway won the Tony for Best Musical Revival and won Audra McDonald as Bess the Tony Award for Best Actress. Time magazine hailed it as the best musical of the year. Porgy and Bess tells the story of Porgy, a crippled black man living in the slums of Charleston, South Carolina. It deals with his attempts to rescue Bess from the clutches of Crown, her violent and possessive lover, and Sportin' Life, the drug dealer. Porgy and Bess premiered in New York in the fall of 1935 and was completely cast with classically trained African-American singers, something unheard of at the time. Gershwin used classic opera form using recitatives and leitmotifs, but wrote his work in the American idiom using blues and jazz, making a groundbreaking modern opera. Gershwin considered it his finest work. Gershwin's instrumental works are a rich contribution to the concert repertoire. In 1924, Gershwin composed his first major classical work, Rhapsody in Blue, for orchestra and piano. It proved to be his most popular work. Shown here is the gifted Leonard Bernstein performing part of this work. You will recognize that this is the music from the United Airlines commercials, which licensed it from the Gershwin estate for a reputed $500,000. I have to admit, it's a cheap price to pay to have a company associated with this extraordinary composition. Gershwin was influenced by French composers of the early 20th century. The orchestrations in Gershwin's symphonic works often seem similar to those of Maurice Ravel, and Ravel's two piano concertos show Gershwin's influence. Gershwin asked to study with Ravel. When Ravel found out how much money Gershwin earned, he said, "How about you give me some lessons?" While in France, Gershwin wrote An American in Paris. This work received mixed reviews at its first performance at Carnegie Hall in December of 1928, but it was well received by the public and frequently performed in Europe and the United States. His work was written as a symphonic poem, an instrumental work that tells a story, originally performed without dancing. It was later choreographed into a movie starring Gene Kelly and Leslie Caron. Recently, it was reworked into a spectacular Broadway musical, adding in several of Gershwin's songs. I saw this in San Francisco. While I expected it to be good, I did not expect it to be so incredible that I couldn't speak for 20 minutes afterwards because of the lump in my throat. It is pure art. Here's one number that was performed on the Stephen Colbert Show. Growing tired of the Parisian musical scene, Gershwin returned to the United States. He wrote several musicals which were reworked with updated scripts in the late 20th century that enjoyed excellent runs on Broadway, including Crazy for You, My One and Only, Nice Work If You Can Get It. In 1937, Gershwin started to complain of blinding headaches and a recurring impression of smelling burned rubber. Doctors diagnosed it as a type of cystic malignant brain tumor. He was rushed into surgery and died during the operation. In 2001, a pathologist in Louisiana studied the slides and said that his tumor may have been a slow-growing and treatable one, even in the 1930s. Gershwin had previously complained of abdominal pain, and his doctors told him he was a hypochondriac, but this pathologist contends that this abdominal pain was also symptomatic of this type of tumor. He died in 1937 at the age of 38 at Cedars of Lebanon Hospital following surgery for the tumor. Where the world mourned, John O'Hara, an American novelist, summed it up. George Gershwin died July 11th, 1937, but I don't have to believe it if I don't want to. In 2005, The Guardian determined that using estimates of earnings accrued in a composer's lifetime, George Gershwin was the richest composer of all time. Now, the Gershwin inheritances triggered a debate in the musical theater world as to how far the rights of a composer's descendants should extend. Neither George Gershwin nor his brother Ira had any children. However, Ira's wife had nieces and nephews, distant relatives, and they ended up inheriting the complete Gershwin estate, including the rights to all of his music. So these managers of the Gershwin estate actively protect the Gershwin property for their families. Well, this sounds fine from the perspective of the people who are inheriting the money. Everybody who wants to perform these works, including schools, need to pay thousands of dollars to people who aren't even blood relatives of George Gershwin or even direct descendants in any way. They are distantly related through marriage. Also, these people who aren't artists themselves make artistic decisions altering Gershwin's work. Now, true, sometimes they are good decisions, but sometimes people wonder at the wisdom. Stephen Sondheim has openly attacked the greedy Gershwin estate. At any rate, we greatly appreciate the legacy Gershwin left. His works have warmed theaters and concert halls around the world for some 80 years.